Hello, everyone. My name is Alexander Konarski, and I'm here at Wonders of Wildlife National Museum and Aquarium. I want to thank you guys for joining us so much today as we move into our third week of the month of August, continuing our theme all about sharks. Along with the live stream we do each week, we will also offer a really cool free virtual scavenger hunt app that you can play right at home, along with an activity guide, both with new missions and activities each month. To download the app and explore all of this, just go over to www.wondersofwildlife.org/mission-conservation. This address will take you to our mission conservation webpage. On this page, check over on the box to the right that says get the app. Just click the download button and follow the instructions. Once you have that app downloaded, create a user account and just log in. Next, hit the search bar and type in mission conservation. This is where all of our at-home missions will pop up for you to play. If you look a little further down, you will see featured missions. Featured missions are the most current missions we have to offer. And the last place I want to bring your attention to on this page is the schedule of missions and activities. This section will show you all the missions that are live, including our current mission, Sharks. If you click on the plus sign, it will drop down to the tab and you can find the link to the activity guide for this month. The activity guide has a craft, as well as a fun outdoor activity and something you can do to help sharks. Right now, I'm currently standing in front of our White Sharks exhibit here at Wonders of Wildlife. So we all know that most humans possess the 5 basic senses, hearing, sight, touch, taste, and smell. Well, sharks have all of these senses, as well as another we humans do not possess. It is called electroreception, and it is used to help detect electric fields and changes within them. Ampullae of Lorenzini is a common way to refer to these electroreceptors that form a network of mucus-filled pores surrounding a shark's rostrum, or their nose. Here to talk to us today is Kristen Kibblehouse from the Atlantic White Shark Conservancy. Kristen is the Community Engagement Manager for the AWSC, and here to talk to us about the history of white sharks. Kristen, how are you doing today?
I'm good. How are you?
Oh, doing fantastic here. I think we're ready to get going with all that cool stuff you have to share with us.
Perfect. So if everyone just wants to give me 1 second, I'm going to share the screen so we can show you all the cool photos and videos that we have ready. And then we will get started. So again, thank you everyone. I come from across the country in Massachusetts and specifically on Cape Cod. My name is Kristen Kibblehouse. I'm the Community Engagement Manager here at the Atlantic White Shark Conservancy, where we're located in Chatham, Massachusetts. So if anyone's familiar with the shape of Cape Cod, we are in the elbow. So for us at the Atlantic White Shark Conservancy, or AWSC, we are a nonprofit, and we really see ourselves focusing in 3 different sections where we are looking at the great white shark or the white shark. So with that, the first part is we are helping to fund and also collaborate with research of the great white shark here off of our coastline with Dr. Greg Skolmel. He's sitting here, we'll stand in right on that pulpit there. Dr. Greg Skolmel is with the Massachusetts Division of Marine Fisheries, where he is really spearheading the research here off of the Massachusetts coastline. So if anyone watches, Shark Week or Shark Fest, you might be familiar with Greg's name. He's been on there for almost 10 years now. So he's quite the frequent flyer. But with these sharks and these movements that we see here off of our local beaches, sometimes we're seeing them really close to shore, where we all do like to spend our summer and fall months. So with that, then we do collaborate and share our data with people that are in charge of our beaches and public safety, like lifeguards and town managers and beach managers, so they can properly put forth those public safety protocols. And last but not least is we can learn so much about this species of fish here in our oceans, but we have to educate the public as well. And that's people that live here on Cape Cod all year round, or for the thousands of people that are coming to our coastline every single year to enjoy the amazing beaches that we do have. Before us here, though, why white sharks? Why are we studying them? Well, they are a very important species in our oceans, which I'll get into in a little bit. But we do see other populations of them throughout our world. Now, these populations do not intermix in any way. They do stick to their own ocean. But in other areas of the world, like our population in South Africa, or off of Australia and New Zealand, or even on the west coast of the United States, like off of California and the Farallon Islands, a little bit further south, off of Baja, Mexico, and Guadalupe. In all these other areas, scientists have been able to study their movements and their habits for decades and being able to really learn a lot about that local population. But here within the Northwest Atlantic, where we do see these white sharks swimming from as far south as Florida, up the coast of the United States, where they spend most of their time here off of Cape Cod. And then they do continue their way up north into Canada and Newfoundland, where then here we haven't been able to have that opportunity because unfortunately in the Northwest Atlantic for a very long time, it was very popular to fish the great white shark. Due to movies like Jaws and such, the popularization of sport fishing to get the largest white shark in our oceans was really key in dramatically reducing the populations here. So at one point, it is estimated that we did take out 80% of the great white shark population in the Northwest Atlantic. But at this time, then scientists were really able to study more tangible aspects of sharks, like their internal anatomy, their external anatomy, how large they can grow. You can see the scientist here is using himself as a size comparison between the adult male white shark here on the screen. So with this, then this is what we're learning. We're learning about their age and their growth. So the photo of the circle that you are seeing is a vertebra column of a white shark, and you can count the rings on it just like you can a tree to get a general age estimate of that individual. And because of things like this, we are now knowing that they can live up to 70 years, which is pretty incredible. So because of this and because of the overfishing of this shark, they were then put under a protection. So in 1997, they did put under a federal protection here in the United States, so meaning that you cannot go out and purposely fish or kill this animal. But it wasn't until 2005 that they became a state protected species here in Massachusetts. So because of these protections, now we are starting to see this conservation success story of the great white shark and seeing them come back to areas where historically they have been seen before. But we really can't talk about our research and what we do here without talking about another conservation success story, which is their food source, which is the gray seal, which is a marine mammal that we see here off of our coastline. Now with this, as I said, they have a very similar story. Now, you used to be able to hunt seals here off of Massachusetts, which is was called the seal cull. So meaning that you can go out and kill a seal and bring its nose into your local town hall, and you would be paid for that. Seals used to be considered a nuisance here along our coastline, and due to that, it's estimated that over 130,000 gray seals were killed here off of the Massachusetts coastline alone. So because of this, here off of Cape Cod, at one point, it's estimated that less than 50 were here at one point. So they were also put under a state protection, and as well as a federal protection under the Marine Mammal Protection Act, which is that federal act that was put into place in 1972. Now, this just didn't protect gray seals. This protects all other types of seals like the fur seal or the harp seal or other species of marine mammals like a sea lion or a whale or a dolphin. So this blanketed many other marine species because of this. And like I said, they were protecting whales as well. So we do see white sharks feeding on whales, and now we're seeing them actively feed on seals and as well as whales here off of our coastline as well. And now what we're seeing is this conservation success story between predator and prey. And now we're seeing them come back to areas where historically they've always been. If we look at books written by Henry David Thoreau, he wrote a book about Cape Cod, which is named Cape Cod in 1862. And with that, he remarks seeing the seals and the sharks here off of our coastline. So because of these protections, we're seeing this nature come back into balance. And as I said, we're seeing sharks actively feed on these marine mammals here off of our coastline. And when I say actively, I mean actively. Yesterday, this was actually a drone photo taken with a white shark feeding on a dead humpback whale here off of our coastline. So you can see that because of these protections, we are now able to see things that before we would have never been able to see before. So as I said, nature is coming back into balance. We're seeing that great white shark, that apex predator, that animal that's at the top of the food chain, come back, and we are now seeing everything come back into balance. And this is a very generalized photo of how our ocean ecosystems work around here. But if we really pull back and see how everything is truly interconnected, I know this looks like I scribbled a bunch of things all over the screen, but this is really shows our food web and show how our top predators like the great white shark can then really connect with things all around it. So we could try to follow a line. It goes all the way down there, where this one can go all the way over here. So it really shows that if we take one thing out of our ecosystem, everything else around it is going to be affected. Hence why it is so important to keep these protections on these animals. So now that we have a little bit of a history lesson and now about why we are able to have this predictable access to be able to research the shark every single year, let's get into the research of what the Atlantic White Shark Conservancy is doing with the Massachusetts Division of Marine Fisheries. Now with that, obviously, we are studying the great white shark and our research area is the beautiful Cape Cod. Now, I'm not sure if anyone who's watching has maybe been to Cape Cod in the past, but we have a really dynamic area where we stick really far off the coast and we're surrounded by 3 different water systems. So we have the Atlantic Ocean to the outer arm here of Cape Cod. Then we also have Cape Cod Bay. Then we also have the Nantucket Sound here to our south. And then we have Buzzards Bay here. I'll put a circle in Buzzards Bay. So with that, then we have these really different, interesting ocean and bay and sound areas where we are able then to look at these sharks. But with that, then we do kind of focus to 2 separate spots. So I'm now going to switch my color to green. So we do focus on the Atlantic Ocean side because this is where we are seeing the majority of these shark sightings here. But we also will go into Cape Cod Bay as well, because you can just jet right over around the arm and then you're in the bay. So with that, then this is the 2 areas of focus where we are then actively then sampling sharks and being able to study them. But with that though, weather can be a very big component here off of Massachusetts. We can get some really interesting fog and weather patterns being stuck so far off here of the coastline. And so because of that, we really depend on a very interesting aspect to our research. So when we find a great white shark, we are not chumming the water. No bait goes in the water. We are not fishing for that individual shark. We're actually finding these sharks by a spotter pilot. So we work with a man, his name is Wayne Davis, and he flies up and down our coastline. And then he's able to spot sharks, communicate that to our research boat, and then be able to direct us to that individual so we can start doing research on it. And so here is a photo that Wayne took. So Wayne is also an aerial photographer as well as a pilot. He is skilled in many ways. And with that, then you can already maybe see where the shark is in the photo. So I'll give you a few seconds before I point it out. And maybe you're able to see that shark. So what's really great here off of our coastlines is that we do have nice white sand. And then with that nice blue water, we get that really nice contrast with the dark shark against the sand. So here is our great white shark right there. Now you might have thought, I'm going to put a star beside it. This individual might have been the shark, but that is our gray seal. So we will see sharks then come closer to shore to be able then to find their next meal, which would be that seal. So this is why it's important then to have that spider pilot, because he's really able to see multiple different species from the sky. Now, once we are on a shark though, now we can actually start that research. So the research here is really focusing on what is the population of great white sharks in the Northwest Atlantic. As I said earlier in the talk, I said that 80% of the population was fished out at one point. So we really don't know how many are out there after these conservation initiatives were put into place. So because of that, we are doing our population study. Hopefully we'll have that estimate at the end of the year. So we actually will be able to give the first estimate of the great white shark population here in the Northwest Atlantic. So how do we do that? We have to mark them as individuals. So how you can tell all of us apart from our hair color, our fingerprints, eye color, scarring, freckles, and things like that. We can do that with a white shark as well. They do have that white belly and a gray body, but they will have scars. They will have differentiations in where their white meets the gray. So what we do is we actually stick a camera pole attached to a GoPro in the water. So all this is done as our researchers are standing on the boat and that shark is freely swimming. So here's an example of that underwater footage. So GoPro goes in the water, shark swims on by. We're able to get then video footage of the left side of the shark, remaneuver our boat and get video footage of the right side of that shark. And then we are able to send it off to our ID squad and they will analyze this video compared to the thousands of others that have been taken within the last 10 years to be able to identify them as individuals. So some ways we are able to identify them is by their tails. So here are 2 different white sharks that have been identified, Lynn and James. If you already start looking at their tails, you might see some of those differences right away. One of the most obvious ones is that Lynn has an injury. Well, let's change that color there so it doesn't blend into the green. Lynn has that injury here at the top of her tail. So we do see sharks with injuries. They can be from other sharks, from seals protecting themselves, or with run-ins with different boats and such. So we can identify them by injuries. We can also look at the coloration markings. So we can see that Lynn also has a nice white mark right there on her tail, where James does not. Where then James has white going down the bottom half of his tail, and Lynn's is gray. So there's one way that we can identify these sharks from one another. We can also look at their gill slits. So I like to call this a gill print or a fingerprint to you and I would be. So we can see where the white meets the gray on that body, that it's not a straight line like we might see on our stuffed animals at home or in a movie or something like that. They all have a different pattern. So we can look at where the white meets the gray. And this is a really great way that our ID team uses to identify these individual sharks. So if we look at Marianne and Brady, us being from the New England area, of course, we had to name a shark Brady after Tom Brady before he left to the Buccaneers, of course. But we do have a shark named Brady. And with that, you can see how Marianne has these little white markings on the top of her gill slits, where Brady is pretty gray all throughout them. So again, just some ways that we are able to identify them. Now, just strictly looking at GoPro footage, our team has identified over 500 sharks this way. So which is pretty incredible. Just by getting things that you can get at your local Best Buy and Home Depot, we are able to do some really interesting and groundbreaking shark research with it from this type of method. But once we get video footage of them, we are able then to tag them, because we also want to know, where are they swimming? We know that a majority of them spend a lot of their time here off of Cape Cod during those summer and fall months. But due to tagging initiatives and other collaborations, we have been able to learn that they are also swimming off of the New Hampshire coastline, Maine, and also other countries like Canada. Some stay down south during the year off of the Carolinas or Florida. So being able to tag them and really then learn about those movements also helps us put these puzzle pieces together to learn about our Northwest Atlantic population. So when we tag them, same thing, we are using it as they are freely swimming. We're not capturing the shark at all. So you can kind of see the shark there in the water. I like to call it my shark smudge or my shark shadow. Dr. Skolmel is standing here at the pulpit, and then he is holding that tagging pole to be able to tag the shark. Sharks are tagged at the base of where their dorsal fin meets the body. Dorsal fin's that top fin there. And with that, this is the most muscular part of the shark. This does not hurt the shark in any way. And this is also the least stressful way. So then they are calm, cool, and being able then to tag that individual. Now, since they are freely swimming, the tagging process has to be very quick. So here's a video to explain and show how quick that process really is. So there's Dr. Skolmel out on the pulpit with that tagging pole, sneaking up behind that shark there as it's swimming. A quick go, and that shark is tagged. And then it does then swim away. So because of this, then we are able to track their movements, not just off of our coastline here in Massachusetts, but really throughout our whole New England region. So the tag that is being used is called an acoustic tag. Now, what's really cool with this technology is that it's not just used on great white sharks. It's used on other species of sharks. It can be put on dolphins, sea bass, turtles, whales. So it's this really cool piece of technology that is used for many different of our ocean species. So the tag is here on the left. Let's put a star beside it. And with that, then this is how we're able to track them off of our coastline. The tag is inserted by this intermuscular dart there as well. And think of this system as Easy Pass for sharks. So Easy Pass is that little toll booth scanner that you put in your car. And anytime you drive by a toll booth, then it scans it so you don't have to stop and pay. So with that, then anytime a shark swims by one of these acoustic receiver systems, then the radius is about 300 meters. So it doesn't have to get very close to it. Then it will pick that up and it'll give us the date, the time, and the tag number. So then we are able to pull this system out of the water multiple times a year to be able then to see these movements. So then with this, then we get some pretty cool data. So here's some data from last season in 2020. So a purple square is a place where those yellow buoys are that I was just showing you. Now with that, there is about 80 of them off of the Massachusetts coastline. I can't put 80 on the screen because then we're not going to be able to see much. So here are just some of them that you are able to view. So a purple square is where those receivers are located. The number within the square is telling you how many tagged great white sharks were detected during 2020. So I said earlier, over 500 are identified, but we have about 220 that are actually tagged. So we do have a little bit of a gap between tagging and identifying, but every season we are closing that gap. So if we look off of where we are located here in Chatham, let's get a big circle there beside it, Chatham, and you'll see our receiver here off of our coastline says 91. So that means 91 individual great white sharks that are tagged were recorded on that receiver in 2020. So this type of data can be shared then with our lifeguards, our local beaches, and as well as other researchers around then to be able to use this data to learn about their movements, just not off of particular beaches, but then throughout the full coastline as well. Now, what's really cool is that that's not the only tag that we're using here off of our coastline. With that, what you're now seeing is called a CATS tag, which stands for Customized Animal Tracking System. And this is like a Fitbit on a shark. We get the shark's eye view. It has a video camera on it. So we're able to see what that shark is seeing as it's swimming, but it also gives us water depth and water temperature of where it's swimming, and as well as how fast it is swimming as well. So then we get to see these habits and these movements that sharks are doing when our research boat can constantly be following it. So really cool tag that we've been able to use, and we have been able to get some really cool footage on it so far to look at these habits and movements when they are not here right beside our boat. With that, as I said, this is a collaborative effort. Us with the Atlantic White Shark Conservancy is part of the New England White Shark Research Consortium, where yes, the Greg Skolmel with the Massachusetts Division of Marine Fisheries is actively tagging here off of Cape Cod, but then we are working with other people and groups as well. So other nonprofits, universities, state agencies to learn about these movements here off of our coastline. If it's expanding our acoustic receiver array to learn about movements off of New Hampshire or Maine, or working with groups like the Center for Coastal Studies in Provincetown, Massachusetts, where they look at marine mammal interactions. So they study whales and seals. So we're collaborating with them on these predator-prey interactions as well, collaborating with PhD students and graduate students at universities that are studying sharks as well. So it's a really big effort to be able to put this puzzle piece together and this puzzle of the great white shark in the Northwest Atlantic Ocean to be able to learn more. With that, then, as we wrap up, though, I do just want to put that reminder out that, yes, the great white shark is a wild animal, but they are not out to get us humans. We are not on the menu for the great white shark or for any shark for that matter. Their food source, as I said earlier, are marine mammals. They like to eat other fish as well, but we are seeing them eating seals and whales and striped bass and tuna and things like that here. They are not out to get humans. And I know, as we showed earlier, that sometimes they can swim here close to our shoreline, but we have to remember that the ocean is their home. And to be able to have this access to study them year after year is going to have us be able to further not just understand the population in the Northwest Atlantic, but as the population as a whole throughout the world. So then we can better preserve these animals and then be able to keep our oceans healthier. Because without sharks, our oceans are not healthy as well. So with that, I'm just going to wrap up the talk here and just give you all some updates if you're interested in learning about the Conservancy at all at any more. If you're interested in tracking great white sharks off of the East Coast, we do have our app, which is called Sharktivity. It's a free app across iPhone or Android. You can see where confirmed shark sightings are, look at that acoustic data. If you really like statistics and numbers, we have the White Shark Logbook, which is located on our website, which shows you the past 10 years of acoustic data. So you can look at sharks that have been detected by year, by length, by sex. We also have our White Shark Catalog, so you can see all those 500 sharks that have been identified as well. We also have a podcast, which is called Gill's Talk, which is our podcast presented by the Gills Club, which is our STEM-based initiative to connect youth with female scientists from around the world. It's a podcast I do all the editing for, the producing, and I host it. So it's a really great podcast if you're interested in shark research that some really amazing and inspirational women from around the world are doing. So I interviewed those scientists as well. So with that, thank you all. It's been really cool to be able to, I know COVID has been such a downer and a really bad place for a lot of people, but being able to expand our virtual realm and be able to connect with agents of discovery has been really cool to be able then to meet people from across the country and be able to connect that way.
Well, Kristen, that was really awesome. That was a lot of information, really cool photos. And that was awesome that you guys got to get that photo just right off the bay, you said, of that shark and the humpback whale.
Yeah, it was on the ocean side. It's still out there right now. So I know our research boat's trying to get out there to view some action. So,
Yeah, that'd be awesome. You know, share that later when you get some cool video. But I did have a few questions for you today. So we talked a lot about white sharks. Now, a lot of our viewers are probably looking on the screen there and they see, oh, I recognize that shark. But they probably know it more as the great white. Is there any reason like what the difference is between white shark and great white shark? Like, are they the same? Is it a common name that people kind of have started just developing on their own? Like, where does it come from?
And you're exactly right. It's just that common name that people have added great onto it. So scientists have always called the great white shark the white shark. It's because of that belly that they have as well. And then with movies like Jaws and really dramatizing this species of shark, great kind of got added onto it. And then with media being able to spin things and kind of make it crazy and such. So that's why I typically will say white shark. Sometimes I throw in great white, just feeling, depending on what I want to say that day. But that's really why you see that distinction between scientists and then media saying white shark versus great white shark.
Hey, that makes a lot of sense. You know, it's kind of like that Hollywood magic where you got to make something super grand and you're like, what can they add to it? And great is a great word to use.
Yeah.
Going into the researching and the tagging with your team or with the issue altogether, what is the largest specimen that you guys have been able to come in contact with out there in your area and have been able to tag and follow and research?
Yeah, so it's actually one of the first sharks I was ever tagged here off of the Massachusetts coastline. Her name is Curly. She was the 5th shark that was tagged here. She's 18 feet in length, about 5 foot wide. With that, though, she has not been seen since 2013. So we're not sure where she is. We haven't detected her. No one's seen her. So, but she has been the largest one that has been seen. Typically, white sharks only get to be about 18 feet in length. I know we have sharks like Deep Blue, who's on the Pacific Ocean. She's about 21 feet in length. She's the outlier. But on average, they get about 18 feet in length. So we have seen some 16 footers and 17 footers, but no one's beat Curly's size yet.
I mean, just trying to picture a 15-foot shark right next to me in the water. I think that would make me rethink my choices for that day. But trying to imagine a 20-footer or a 21-footer out there next to me, it'd probably take me a minute and I'd have to rethink that whole we're going to need a bigger boat situation there. Those guys, it'd be really, really cool though. I have no doubt. I do have one last question for you here, Kristen.
Okay.
So out of all the things that you've gotten to do with your organization and all the time you've spent there, what is the coolest thing that sticks with you? Like, what's the thing you've had the most fun doing or the most memorable time that you've had there?
So I really think, so part of my role here within the Conservancy is that I get to manage and oversee our ecotourism program. So I get to take people out and see white sharks in their natural habitat. And we find them the same way our research boat is. We work with a spotter pilot and I see families that, you know, mom and dad grew up during the Jaws era and they're a little apprehensive, but they're children might be going to college for marine biology, or, you know, they just love sharks. And they want to give them this experience. And you see their perception of sharks change in front of your eyes and being able to see that they're not jumping at the boat. They're not lunging on like you see Jaws do with Quint at the end of the movie. You know, they're there, they're just relaxing, swimming. They're not acting aggressive in any way. And it's really amazing to see just that perception switch and have someone that used to be reserved. And then they're almost like you're trying to hold them because they're hanging over the boat because they just want to get a closer look in the water. So I think that's one of my most memorable things is just being able to help those interactions with people.
I mean, that definitely sounds like it'd be really cool to help get that passion inspired in some of these people out here that would probably never have thought they'd get that close to one of those sharks. So that's really awesome. Kristen, I want to thank you so much for taking the time today to talk to us. That was an amazing presentation. We got to learn all those cool and exciting things about the white sharks and their history. And as we end our live stream today, I want to thank everybody for joining us. Make sure to tune in next Tuesday on August 24th, as we will be continuing our shark theme with a dissection and talking with Audrey Moore, who is a lead educator right here at Wonders of Wildlife. We hope to see you then, and remember to keep swimming. And I want to leave you with the iconic words of Bruce the White Shark: fish are friends, not food. All right, guys, we'll see you next week.